Hi, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week. We begin with continuing coverage of the falling Mississippi River. A drought in the Midwest has some places along the river reaching record lows, records set just 10 years ago. TWILA's Neil Melanson shows us how these low levels are having a big impact on trade and agriculture.
The low levels of the Mississippi River revealed an archaeological find recently. This is an old ferry from the 1840s that is being studied by state archaeologists and attracting a few tourists. The old boat has something in common with its modern-day counterparts. Both are stuck near the shore. A prolonged drought in the Midwest has river levels reaching historic lows, according to climatologist Jay Grimes.
It depends on where you are. There are some river gauge sites upriver that are in fact reporting record lows. Here in Baton Rouge, we're not really anywhere near the record low. Right now we're at about 5 feet here midweek, and we're expected to drop potentially below 3 feet. Now that's getting very low, but the river's been below 2 feet a couple of times here in Baton Rouge.
The low levels have led to significant drops in river traffic. That, in turn, is affecting our ag economy, according to LSU Ag Center economist Dr. Michael Delaberto.
Not only are we seeing a backlog in the number of barges being unloaded, not only are we seeing a reduction in the capacity that they're carrying, but we're also seeing freight charges reach record levels. At the end of September, the freight rate for St. Louis South to move a ton of grain was $50. That was a high. By October 11th, that freight rate had increased to over $105 a ton. By October 17th, that rate had come down to about $72 a ton. And that's really driven by the fact that in the low river stages, the high freight costs, some of these shippers of corn and soybeans specifically have reduced deliveries, and that softened the demand for barges a little bit.
Delaberto says alternate means of transportation just aren't feasible. Each one of these barges carries as much grain as almost 1,000 tractor trailers.
Shippers of corn and soybeans prefer barge transportation because it's very economical, it's very cost effective as compared to rail and truck. One 15-tow barge can equate to about 940 semi-trucks of freight on the road. So shippers are very much in favor of freight to move those grains long distances, say from the upper Midwest to the export facilities down in Louisiana and the port of South Louisiana. For every foot decline in river depth, that barge has got to be loaded from anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 fewer bushels of either corn or soybeans per barge.
While the river here in Baton Rouge isn't at an all-time low, it isn't expected to rise anytime soon either. Even if we get rains across the south, it wouldn't help the river levels. Only major rains across the Midwest will restore the mighty Mississippi.
One of the things most people don't realize is that this is an interstate that runs through the state that basically has no on-ramps. Very little rain that falls in Louisiana gets into the Mississippi. So what happens upstream has no bearing on whether we're in drought or in surplus down here, because none of that water gets there. And the other thing to keep in mind is that roughly 30% of this flow is diverted down the Atchafalaya. So in fact, Louisiana takes more water out of the Mississippi, far more water to feed the Atchafalaya than it puts in.
Now, currently, the forecast for the river in Baton Rouge is about 4.5 feet through the first week of November. Of course, that could change, and different parts of the river could go even lower before this gets any better. And Avery, I think it's important to note here what we're talking about when we're talking about the river levels. Of course, everybody knows about flood stage because unfortunately we've had to deal with that. And in Baton Rouge, the flood stage from the Mississippi River is about 30 feet, which means that's the part where it goes over the banks. But what does that mean? 4.5 feet, 30 feet? It doesn't mean from the depth of the bottom of the channel. It means above sea level.
Gotcha, because I was wondering, if it's 4 feet, obviously these barges and these ships are drafting deeper than that.
Do you know how deep the Mississippi River goes?
So if I remember correctly, it is dredged down to 50 feet below sea level?
in Baton Rouge maybe, but in New Orleans it's actually 200 feet.
Wow.
Which is part of the whole issue that they're having. In Lower Plaquemines Parish right now, in fact, they're putting up a barrier in there because it doesn't matter how deep it goes. If it's not above sea level, then that means seawater can creep in. So that's what they're trying to push out. Even though that river's like a jet down there and it's pushing river out, seawater can still creep above it and get further up the river.
And that's having effects on drinking water and the like down there.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Neil Melancon. One word Louisiana farmers would use to describe this year's weather is uncooperative. As TWILA's Craig Gautreaux shows us, nearly every major crop has seen some yield and quality loss because of extended hot, dry weather, followed by extremely wet conditions.
Whether corn, cotton, or soybeans, most row crops in Louisiana have been victims of wild weather swings. Yields for many crops will not reach last year's numbers, and 2021 was not considered a banner year. Matt Foster, state cotton specialist, said cotton farmers increased acres significantly, but will not be satisfied with this year's results.
We are seeing a yield drag due to the drought conditions as well as the flooding conditions in the month of August.
Sweet potatoes are one of the most expensive crops to grow. Farmers can spend upwards of $4,000 per acre. The weather had a devastating effect, especially in the northeast part of the state where most of the potatoes are grown.
It's not great. It's certainly not a great situation that many of our producers are not going to realize the yields that they needed to put them over and into that profit margin.
Soybean farmers also didn't escape the wrath of weather. Sugarcane farmers often plant soybeans on their fallow land, but a wet August caused many of those acres to rot.
You've got some areas, some farms, where the combines didn't even get in the field. Matter of fact, my family's farm, they didn't even run a combine through any of their soybean acreage.
The lone bright spot? The heavy rains of August may have turned this year's sugarcane crop into a record one.
They suffered a little bit of yield loss with that dry weather, but the rain in August not only turned around their cane crop, but it turned around the crop for the entire industry.
Sugar recovery at the mills have benefited from the dry weather, but cane farmers are starting to get anxious for a rain on their newly planted cane, which will be harvested next year. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
Just how dry is it in Louisiana? The Baton Rouge area has received a ½ inch of rain since Labor Day, when the normal total would be more than 6 inches. Statewide, we are about 4 to 6 inches behind the normal rainfall for the past 60 days. While Congress is in recess for the upcoming elections, lawmakers are back home in their districts campaigning and meeting with constituents. Congressman Mike Johnson recently caught up with a handful of farmers in northwest Louisiana to speak with them about the tough couple of years they've faced with weather, markets, and supply chain issues.
It's critical to be out with the farmers that we represent. It's a tough life these days, and hearing their personal accounts and being here on the land, rural northwest Louisiana, some of the prettiest country anywhere, in a big ag district that I represent in Congress, it's just really, really important to be with the people we represent. It's hard to have a solid, really good feel for their daily struggles unless you go out and visit the places where they work. And so this is a critical part of it. We've been delighted today with the turnout and all the great feedback we had.
Well, I really appreciate him taking his time out. I know this is really busy. You know, he's helping other of his colleagues get elected, and they've got a lot on their plate, and I really appreciate the concern that it shows, you know, for agriculture and for the people in his district, for him to make a point to come out here and hear our concerns and, you know, offer a little perspective from him from Washington.
Our crops are struggling. The price of fertilizer is through the roof. The price of all inputs is through the roof, in large part because of the problem we're having with fossil fuels and the energy policy that's being advanced by the White House and the leaders in Congress. And so all of that comes together, and this is where the rubber meets the road. It makes it very, very difficult for our farmers to stay in business, to keep operating the way that they always have. And so we've got to look for innovative solutions to this to keep our farmers in business. I mean, many of them are struggling just to hang on.
It seems like it has been a series of events kind of outside of agricultural's control. You know, markets always talk about the black swan. Well, we've had flocks of them, it seems like. So it's really not production and demand, the things that you are normally used to try to predict what a price would be or what your commodity might be worth at the end of the year. It's just been, you know, totally out of our control.
Congressman Johnson also received a certificate from Louisiana Farm Bureau First Vice President Marty Woodridge for Johnson's great work in Congress representing Louisiana's farmers and ranchers. The Friend of Farm Bureau Award is presented to congressmen and congresswomen whose voting record aligns with agriculture, as well as their advocacy for the farmers and ranchers of their districts. Congresswoman Julia Letlow from Louisiana's 5th District and Congressman Clay Higgins from the 3rd District also received the Friend of Farm Bureau Award. Louisiana is now one of 19 states that has a People's Garden. Named after Abraham Lincoln's description of the USDA as the People's Department, the gardens are designed to reintroduce agriculture into urban areas. The Sankofa Garden in New Orleans recently received a national grant to be a part of this program, turning empty lots into farm fields.
What's most special about it is that we've had this relationship with USDA for so many years and have been mission aligned around this work. So it's an honor to be selected as one of 17 in the country, and for USDA to recognize that it's the right fit for the direction that they're moving towards and the direction we're also moving towards together. There's a few reasons. One, it gives an opportunity for people to get together and grow together and celebrate themselves and each other. It also is an opportunity for learning and education for people who already may be gardening and want to pick up some tools and different tips and may not have access to those outside of their neighborhood. It also is a beautification opportunity. You know, it beautifies the neighborhood. It brings a space of vegetation, of greenery, and it also supports our ecosystems. You know, we have pollinators, we have bees, we have butterflies. We're just making a healthier space for our land to live and thrive.
Agriculture is unique because agriculture involves every individual across this country. Matter of fact, agriculture is really national security. When I think about Louisiana, I think about all the moms and dads, the sons and daughters who live here. I think about the food they must eat, the wood for homes, the food comes from agriculture. All of us need agriculture to survive and grow and nourish. And New Orleans, the food, the nice food, the special food, is from agriculture. It's from those farms right here in town and from those farms outside of town. It's agriculture.
The Sankofa project is more than just a garden and now includes a farmer's market, cooking classes, and wetland restoration. For more information, go to our website at twilatv.org. Now is the time for growing cool weather crops in Louisiana. I'm talking about crops like broccoli, turnips, and collard greens. That's why the Southern University and LSU Ag Centers held a Green Leafy Field Day at Warner Hall's farm just outside of Greensburg in St. Helena Parish. Hall grows okra, watermelons, and all the greens you see here on a little less than 4 acres. Like many produce farmers, he grows based on the season. Hall says it was a pleasure giving other small farmers and ranchers a tour of his farm. Hall was also proud to share that Minority Landowner magazine named him a 2021 Farmer of the Year. Prior to going full-time on his farm, Hall spent 33 years as a Southern University Ag Center extension agent. He says this year has been challenging with dry, then wet, then dry again weather, but he continues to find joy in sharing what worked for him.
This year has been challenging. Without irrigation, I probably wouldn't have this, so I believe in the drip irrigation. That's some of the crops I had to irrigate to get it up, plant it and irrigate it so that you can have moisture for the seed to germinate.
Kathy Broussard from the USDA National Agricultural Statistics Service and Patrick Babineau from the Farm Service Agency also spoke with those in attendance. That let attendees know the importance of filling out surveys and what loan and funding opportunities are available to them. A new program aimed at helping rice farmers and the environment is underway in Louisiana. Robert Bonney, USDA Undersecretary for Farm Production and Conservation, recently visited Louisiana to highlight a climate-smart project with Supreme Rice. The program is designed to lower the amount of water rice farmers use, which both reduces the cost of pumping and limits the emissions of carbon dioxide. Bonnie says the most important part of the program is that the public-private partnership is responsive to the needs of growers.
I like to tell a lot of people this is not a conservation program. People think about climate or conservation. Those are incredibly important programs that we have in other parts of the Farm Bill. But this is a commodity program. What we're trying to do here is produce climate-smart commodities and help producers in any cost, whether it's deployment of practices or measurement and monitoring. And then we think if we can pick that up and we can learn some things that maybe markets, consumer demand, and others will help support this, and so that this all will have to pencil for agriculture, and we think this is a stepping stone to make that happen.
Supreme Rice CEO Bobby Hanks says one of the great aspects of the program is the marketing of rice products grown through this program. The goal of the project is for zero cost to taxpayers.
One of the criteria for the initiative is to make this a market-based initiative. That way the marketplace, our consumers, our customers that are buying our product, they're actually willing to pay for the climate smart product. If we can do that, I mean, that's part of our challenge. We have to go and sell it to the consumer and to our buyers that this product is worth paying a little bit more for because of the benefits that come from reduced emissions, reduced greenhouse gas emissions.
Both the Southern University and LSU Ag Centers are involved in designing and monitoring the program's results. Some families are now 3 generations removed from the farm. That's why it's important to make sure children know where their food and fiber come from. To that end, TWILA's Brianne Hendrickson visited St. James Parish for the Fast Food Farm's Fall Ag Day to see how this agritourism experience is making a difference.
From the basic of the animal needs to where their food really comes from, Executive Director of Fast Food Farms Denise Email's passion for teaching agriculture keeps this Farm Ag Day growing.
Been here 20 years. We've been doing actual Ag Days for 17 years. And then the progress that we have taken, and it's every year you can find more and more activities that are showing them the origin of and all what it has to take to go from the farm to the packaging to the distributor to whatever.
And then the farmers bring them to where? The store.
To Email, it is not just about growing this Ag Day, but growing experiences that the children will always remember.
I encountered with some young adults when I went into the store, and when I told them I was getting ready for Ag Day, they told me, oh my God, this is my favorite thing I did when I was a little kid. And they remembered what they did when they came here as a kid. That touches my heart to know it made a difference in this young person's life. If they can still remember 15 years later of what they did. So it's very rewarding. I think it's very beneficial for kids to experience what they're experiencing today.
Email's goal is to make sure that each of the 500 children that visited the Farm Ag Day was able to learn just how important agriculture really is.
If you want to find out more about the Fast Food Farm, you can visit our website at twilatv.org. And if you're wanting to bring agriculture to your classroom or just learn more about it at home, visit aitcla.org. Now that stands for Ag in the Classroom Louisiana. There you'll find lots of great activities like make-and takes and lessons for each curriculum with grade level and benchmarks all right there. Still to come on TWILA, a story that really bugs me. It's about a guy who is happy when pests destroy his crops. Stay with us. Now more than ever, farmers have the smallest margins for error on their farms. That's why the research by the LSU Ag Center is so important. This week, we meet one of those researchers from the Dean Lee Research Station who destroys his crops so farmers can learn from his research.
I think some of the faculty here could vouch that my field trials here most of the time looks the worst because we wanted, for example, soybean here right beside me to be munched on by different insects. We do a lot of trial and errors here in the field, and it is great that we could do that in the research station where we could afford to actually make mistakes in order for us to make sure that mistake won't be translated in the real field scenario outside of the research arena. I'm James Villegas, the field crops entomologist here at the LSU Ag Center at the Dean Lee Research and Extension Center. So what we do here in my program is to provide those strategies that would efficiently manage insect pests in the field. What we want is to decrease the inputs in the field. So most of the experiments we conduct here and information that they extend is to make sure that we use the best approach possible, and also at the same time it should be economical. I think my favorite part of this job is, interacting with our stakeholders. You talk to producers, you talk to consultants, they tell you what they observe in the field, and from there you are able to generate several ideas that you could kind of do in the field and build some experiments and hopefully get the results out, and that would be a way to answer and have some solutions in some of our pest problems. I never really thought that I will be an entomologist in the first place. I'm not new to agriculture. In the Philippines, where I grew up, most of the areas are farmed with rice and sugarcane. So I knew agriculture pretty early on. But it is when I went to the university where I studied viruses vectored by insects. I realized that this is pretty cool. There's a world out there studying this kind of stuff. What I like about this area is for me to be able to help out in trying to alleviating those problems. And there is no greater joy when you make some recommendations and get a call back and says, oh, that works really well. That's actually quite a great feeling.
To learn more about the research happening at the Dean Lee Research Station, head over to our website at twilatv.org. Still to come on TWILA, it's time for Halloween, and we have some of our favorite farm-themed costumes to share with you in a brand new TWILA Boost. Stay with us. Halloween is right around the corner, and though the holiday we know today revolves around trick-or-treating and dressing up in costumes, it actually has agricultural origins. Halloween is believed to have stemmed from the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, which was celebrated from October 31st into November 1st, marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. And while Halloween is no longer treated as a celebration of harvest, agriculture is still finding its way into the festivities, from the sugar in your candy to the pumpkins you carve and even the costumes you choose. For this week's TWILA Boost, we're sharing some of our favorite ag-themed Halloween costumes. Love those costumes, absolutely love them. If you and your family are dressing up for Halloween with an ag theme, we want to see it. Tag us on social media. We might even share some of our favorites, which might be your favorites too, on the show. We hope everyone has a safe and happy Halloween. Well, that does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week when we'll show you how feral hogs are costing Louisiana farmers big money and what researchers at LSU and the farmers are doing about it. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org, and be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also find all of these stories and more on our YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe, turn on those notifications so you know when we put out something new. For all of us here at TWILA, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.